We'll call this recommending board meeting to order. Today is July 14th, 2009. Are all business in order?
Yes, sir.
All right. Then at this time, I would like to move forward to bill number 2009-29, adopts and updates version of the Las Vegas Downtown Centennial Plan together with related development standards. Staff?
Back with the Planning and Development Department. The changes that we're proposing to the Downtown Centennial Plan are kind of an annual cleanup that we do on the document itself. There is the creation of one new district, the Gateway District, which is downtown just north of the Casino Center District. We're also removing one of the districts. We had a district along Las Vegas Boulevard, but that overlaps with the scenic byway, so we removed that. There's some clarification on the development standards relative to architectural detailing. There's also language in there relative to no longer permitting new billboards in the Parkway Center District, and then some general changes and clarifications to some of the map and the text. Now, we are requesting an amendment to this document based on discussions that we've had since the Planning Commission consideration of this item. Let me pass those out. I'll describe those to you. Basically, there are three things that we're proposing to amend. Number one is relative to our streetscape requirements. As you may be aware, in the past, we had specified that palm trees would be the trees that we use on north-south streets. Because of concerns about sustainability and wanting to increase our tree canopy coverage in the downtown area, what we would like to do is amend that so that we keep palm trees on 4th Street and on Casino Center where we already have them in place. But other north-south streets, we'd like to use shade trees instead. And so that's one of the amendments that we're requesting. And then also expanding the types of shade trees that we can use in the downtown area. All would be drought tolerant. We just want to expand the varieties. The second amendment that we're proposing is we have two districts, the Arts District and the Parkway Center District, which have a list of specific uses. Neither of those districts permitted cell tower facilities, and to be in compliance with federal law, we do need to add that language in there. What we are requiring is that they be of stealth design and that they be painted or colored to match a structure so that they're less visual intrusion. And then the third amendment that we're proposing, we had added some language relative to implementation in the back of the document, including a threshold table, which basically describes the process that applicants need to go through in terms of permitting and doing changes and improvements within the downtown Centennial Plan area. Of that section, part of that we decided really wasn't ready to go forward. What we'd like to do is delete most of that and then just keep the threshold table in the very back of the document. So that summarizes the amendments that we would propose to the ordinance itself.
Question. Are all palm trees out, or are we looking at a mixture of canopy / palm?
Yeah,
or
we're looking at a mixture.
where are you at with this?
Palm trees where we currently have them in place.
I'm talking about upcoming.
Upcoming,
Yes.
primarily shade trees. We would
Okay.
do palm trees in medians where medians occur, but we would look to have mostly shade trees.
Shade
That's what we're
trees.
proposing.
In order to increase the canopy.
Yeah, and the shade for pedestrians along the sidewalks as well.
Okay. And the second item that you mentioned in respect to cell towers.
Yes.
What did you state the cell towers would?
They would have to be stealth
Be included.
designed, and that they would have to be physically attached to a structure and then designed in such a way so that they more or less blend in with the structure itself.
And what properties are these?
This would be within the Parkway Center and then also in the Arts District.
Okay. So no more standalone.
No standalone.
Okay. Councilman, any questions? Okay. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to be heard at this time? Hearing none, seeing none.
Make a
Councilman?
motion to approve?
All in favor?
As amended?
Sure.
Okay. So the motion is on the floor to be approved as amended.
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved. Thank you. Bill number 2009-30 revises and relocates within the municipal code the provisions regulating the naming of streets and assignment of addresses, and adopts the City of Las Vegas street naming and address assignment regulations 2009 edition as a replacement for the 1993 edition of that document, proposed by Director Wheeler. Staff?
Clint Fang with the Planning Department again. There was a countywide 911 committee that discussed countywide addressing standards. And so what we are proposing to do with this amendment is to adopt the recommendations that came out of that committee. There are actually very few significant changes to our actual addressing standards based on those recommendations. One of the major things that we are doing is moving it from one section of the municipal code to another section. The Planning Department will now be responsible for administering that. The proposed changes that are being made to the standards have been reviewed by the Building and Safety Department and also the Fire and Rescue Department. They are in concurrence with the proposed changes, and we would recommend approval of this text.
Where does it, in the backup documentation, show or state what the changes are that we're adjusting? How do you determine?
We have that in the staff report. I can go through those very quickly. if
Thank you.
like me to.
Mhm.
First of all, relative to North and South Streets, it didn't clarify exactly where there are deviations of Beltway and Barclay Avenue. What we did was we went in and clarified where the north and south changes are made relative to those two streets. Also, the deviations from standards were handled as a waiver previously, and now they are handled as a variance. So anytime that we deviate from the addressing standards, that will come forward as a variance.
So let me just stop you there and ask you this question. If in fact we were looking to change a name of a street, it will now come in as a variance?
No, only when we deviate from the standards. For example, using place or court where the title doesn't permit that. When you change the name of a street itself, it will still go through the same process, which is a street name change application. So
Okay.
that won't be a variance, it will continue as is. It's only when you deviate from the standards as set forth in the
Parkway to Boulevard.
Yeah, for example, you can only use Parkway in certain situations.
Right.
I don't know what that is off the top of my head, but just to give you an example, Parkway can only be a north-south street. If you wanted to use it for an east-west street, you would need to file a variance and have
Right.
it go through city council. That's
Okay.
just an example.
Okay.
But
Yes.
this is principally for new development, right? In other words,
Principally, yes.
new streets that need for addresses.
Correct. That's really most of the changes to the document.
Okay. Is there anyone here? Oh, I'm sorry.
I just want to follow. Okay, so just so I understand this, the 2009-30, is this a brand-new bill? The whole thing, pages 1 through 6 are brand new?
Yes, it is. What we have to do is we have to adopt, our street naming standards are issued in a separate booklet, and what this is doing is adopting a new booklet with the changes that we have discussed.
So this replaces an old ordinance
This replaces the 1993 version. Yes.
completely?
Completely.
So if I were to look at the old one, it wouldn't look anything like this?
They're very similar.
Councilman?
They're very similar?
For clarification, on the part that you see on pages 2 through 4, that is the language that actually goes in the code. If we were not relocating this from Title 13, which is what I think it was, to Title 19, you would see a couple of underlines and brackets.
That's what I was looking for.
But
Right.
because we are taking it completely out of Title 13 and putting it in Title 19, it all reads brand new, even though substantively there's very few changes. The same thing basically applies to the booklet at the back. We just republished the whole thing, even though there are very few substantive changes in it. Is that an accurate statement?
Yes.
And it's mainly because we're changing titles, we did it that way.
Okay.
Okay, but normally you would have lines through the old language, or
Right.
brackets with the new language, something
Right.
like that, but you
On
didn't do
page-
that.
On page 4, you'll see an example of that because we did have to amend an existing provision of Title 19. So you'll see the old language bracketed, the new language underlined. But when you completely replace something, you don't do the bracket and underline.
You don't, okay.
Okay. I just learned something new today.
All right.
Any additional questions, Councilman?
Nope.
Hearing none. Is there anyone here from the audience wishing to speak? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved. Bill number 2009-31 allows boat and trailer sales in the C1 zoning district by means of special use permit sponsored by Councilman Steve Ross. Staff?
Flynn Fagg with the Planning Department again. What this is proposing to do is to allow boat and trailer sales in the C1 district by special use permit. There is one distinct difference here in that all sales activity and storage must be within a closed structure within the C1 district. And so that's how that distinguishes this from elsewhere in the other districts.
So previously, boat sales and trailer sales could not take place in C1?
Correct.
They were only taking place in what
In
zoning?
C2,
In C2?
CM, and M.
So we're moving it now closer to,
We're moving
Standard
to
commercial.
C1.
and no storage?
No sales
coverage.
or storage outside. It has to be all within an enclosed district when located within the C1 zoning district.
So you can sell within C1, but it must be inside of the building. It can't be out in the parking lot. Okay. Councilman?
Okay. So what would be an example of that? So you're selling your boat and you're keeping it in your garage?
No, for a boat sales dealership, we have a lot of big box stores that have gone out of business recently.
Specifically on Sahara.
So, yes, what would happen is basically utilizing one of those big box stores, having all of the boats to be sold within the building itself, and that would be the basic configuration.
So this is primarily commercial type of sales?
Exactly, it's commercial sales.
Oh, okay. All right.
So in essence, if there is, for example, here, even in the downtown, I don't think there's any C2 in the downtown, but we do have C1. Boat sales could take place in the downtown in as long as it was on the inside of a building.
As long as they're within an enclosed building.
Yeah. That's cool. I thought you can always do that. I didn't know it was under C2.
It's only C2 and above.
Okay.
Okay.
Councilman,
I'm good.
you good? Okay. Is there anyone from the audience wishing to be heard at this time? Seeing none. All in favor?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Motion?
Motion? to
Okay.
approve.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Aye. Ayes have it. So moved. Bill number 2009-32 authorizes under certain circumstances and administrative extensions temporary licensing approval and the administrative reinstatement of alcohol beverage licenses suspended or revoked for non-payment of license fees proposed by Brad Gerbert. Staff?
I'll be presenting this one. It's a little bit complicated.
It sure is. I got some questions.
So I hope you'll bear with me. The original idea of this bill is part of a larger change to the liquor regulations in Chapter 6.50. Currently, if you miss your semi-annual liquor fee, and you haven't paid it and the penalties within 60 days after it's due, your license is revoked.
That's today.
That's today.
Correct.
Apparently, that has hurt some people more than was originally intended. So the idea was to suspend it at that point and then give them a period of time within which to come in, pay a penalty, get it reinstated, rather than having to go back and pay for the whole thing. Pay for the whole thing and start over with the licensing process, file an application, Metro check, come before the city council. That was something that was recommended by business activity. And you'll find that concept in the original bill on page 2, subsection B and C. that was kind of a grace period, if you will, to allow people who have missed that first deadline to come in. In the meantime, I believe it was the Art Bar, and maybe someone else similarly situated, had their license revoked already and is in a similar position. So Mr. Jervik requested on behalf of that and similarly situated licensees that we put in what you see in subsection D on page 2, which says, in the past, I mean, right now, somebody who missed that deadline would have been revoked. And this is saying, if you come back in within 90 days after the revocation, pay your license fees and the penalties, you can get back in without having to start all over again. The other thing that is in the original version of the bill is section 1 on page 1 of the bill. If you'll recall, there have been situations where a licensee was up for a review on a temporary license, and because of a mistake by a clerical person or a mistake in the agenda in the noticing, that person was not able to be heard under the open meeting law, and it had to be held in abeyance. Meanwhile, the deadline for their temporary approval had passed. So this allows Mr. DeFury to extend that only when a mistake or agenda error occurs, to extend that approval only until the next council meeting so that no action be taken. In the meantime, I have before you a First Amendment to this bill. What happened, as you'll recall, at your last council meeting was you had a person who was trying to sell a temporary license. And so this clarifies that a temporary license can't be sold or transferred.
Because it's not a true license.
It's not a true license. And it also requires, if you'll recall, that person had asked that the license be put into temporary or inactive status.
Inactive status.
But that status hadn't been granted, and he was out there operating as if it had. So this clarifies two things: that a temporary license can't be sold, transferred, or assigned while it's temporary, and that license, if there's a request to put it into inactive or non-operational status, it has to be actually granted. The director has to say, okay, your request has been granted, before they can use the term inactive or non-operational. Because of that expansion, what I did in the First Amendment that's before you is to take out the original Section 1, which was an amendment to existing language, and put the whole thing into a brand new section. So you'll see in Section 1 of the First Amendment that's in front of you, a brand new section called 602.035 that talks about the agenda problem, it talks about the temporary license problem, and it talks about the inactive status problem. So we would recommend that you move this along as a First Amendment. Now you have questions, Council.
Let me try and find it. 602.035.
It's on the first page of your First Amendment.
page.
Yeah. It's only in that one.
Oh, okay. I was looking up here.
So this is the one we're
Right,
voting
that's the
on and
one we're
looking at.
asking you to vote.
Okay.
But this is part 3 to the entire
Right.
item today, correct?
Right.
Okay. I have questions in regards to part 1.
Okay.
And that's the extension of the, not the revoked license, but the expired license.
Okay.
Why didn't we, right now it's 60 days, if in fact a business owner allows his or her license to expire and 60 days go by, the license as of today will be revoked at the 60 or 61st
First
day,
yeah.
correct?
Correct.
Why didn't we just extend it 90 days versus the 60-day versus going to what we're doing right now as far as...
I wish I had Mr. DeFury here to explain that to you, but that may be perfectly acceptable to him. But maybe the best thing to do is...
Because looking at the date, the reason why I'm asking, looking at the date and time as it currently exists, and I'm just still trying to get it clear in my head as well, as it currently exists, as far as the proposed amendment to the ordinance, you will have the 60-day, and business license will have an opportunity to, after the 90th day, have that person come in and pay a late fee and reinstate their license.
Yeah.
That seems like it's more time than necessary.
Yeah. I don't know what the, there must have been one or more licensees who, because of circumstances, just blew off a deadline, and the desire was not to make it so difficult for them to come back. But I obviously can't justify the change, and maybe the best thing to do is hold this in abeyance until Mr. DeFury can be here to answer those questions for you. That's a policy decision, whether to extend
Right.
the time or whether to change it from a revocation to a suspension.
Right.
Yeah.
I would be more prone to just extend from the 60 to a 90-day, and if after 90 days, if I don't realize that my business has not sent in the payment to pay my license to remain in business, then 90 days, I believe, is ample enough time to revoke it,
Okay.
versus just allowing it to linger and then extending it additional 90 days for you to pay basically a late fee.
All right.
That's just keeping business licenses out there specifically for those businesses that intentionally close. They shouldn't have a business license lingering out there on our books like that.
Well, I can tell you, it's kind of a pendulum swing thing. I remember the time when we brought in the ordinance to make it a revocation. Licensing was saying, you know, got too many people missing this, we got too many people out there, we don't know what they're doing, let's just revoke it. And see, now apparently that was too harsh in Mr. DeFury's view, and he's trying to soften it a little bit and find a good middle ground. We can certainly move it along with just a change in the date, but you know, my recommendation, because Mr. DeFury may have a perfectly good explanation.
Yeah,
for his
I would like to
request,
hear from them.
that we hold it in abeyance and have him here, make sure he's here at the next meeting.
Okay. Counsel,
Okay, I'll make that motion.
Okay.
you have any questions? No concerns? Okay.
Councilman,
Yes, ma'am.
we only have one bill on council tomorrow, so we were going to pass the next recommending and move one bill to the following before the August 15th council meeting.
Okay.
So do you want this held 2 weeks or move it to the second one of August?
Would you come and state your name for the record?
Yeah, Beverly Cambridge is the city clerk.
Thank you.
I should know
Right. It's your rules.
that. What do you think, Val?
Well, this one was fast-tracked because of a desire to move it forward as quickly as possible.
And we will move the one bill tomorrow to the 8-4 recommending, and we can have this one on there as well. So we'll have two bills.
Tomorrow?
At the next recommending.
Oh, at the next
which would be,
recommending.
August 4th.
Okay.
Okay, all right, that's fine. That's the motion. That's-
Okay.
Okay.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it. Oh, I'm sorry. Is there anyone from the audience wishing to speak on this item? Seeing none? Okay, thank you. Okay. We are now down to citizens' participation. Public comment during this portion of the agenda must be limited to matters within the jurisdiction of the committee. No subject may be acted upon by a committee unless that subject is on the agenda and is scheduled for action. If you wish to be heard, please come to the podium and give your name for the record. Is there anyone wishing to speak at this time during public comment? Seeing none, this recommending meeting today is closed. Thank you. So this will come